murder someone in cold blood is one of the darkest veils that hangs over our society today. It's a crime that not only takes away the victim's life, but also their ability to forgive.
Today, police combed the DeFeo's handsome three-story house for clues while divers explored the backyard swimming pool for the still unfound murder weapon. Police have been questioning the son Ronald and now say he is being, quote, safeguarded. Investigators say without explanation that they now feel young DeFeo was in the house at the time of the murders, but they're not yet considering him a suspect. And so forth.
We have no suspect at this time. We have no indication of the motive at this time.
What about Ronald DeFeo, the son, the surviving son?
Ronald is being safeguarded by the Suffolk County Police at this time.
Why safeguarded?
Why? Because there's 6 members of the family dead, and we don't know why, and he's the sole remaining member.
Is he also a suspect?
He's not a suspect at this time.
Few people in the neighborhood knew the family well, but those who did described them as close-knit.
Well, I think they were just very sweet, very religious people, very family-minded people. And that's about all I could say. Very good, very generous, this type. I mean, very close with their children.
There's one element in the usual mass murder story which seems to be missing from this case. There's no sense of fear in this community. No feeling of a mass murderer on the loose. People we talked to seem to feel that whatever was the motive for this crime, it had something to do with the family. It's not something that's going to return to bother anyone else. In Amityville, Long Island, Phil Barno, News Center 4.
So what happens to the pain, anger, and the need for revenge after the unforgivable is committed? Some people believe that in this very house at 112 Ocean Avenue, Amityville, the answers may remain. Our story begins in the 1970s. A family by the name of DeFeo were living in a nice prestige neighbourhood. The DeFeos were a large and troubled family. There were 7 of them, all living under one roof. Ronald DeFeo Sr. was known to be an overbearing brute of a man that raised his hands to his children and wife on a daily basis, sometimes inflicting lasting injuries.
Father was a very rough person. I mean, he was a violent man. I got beat up since the day I was born. I mean, I know they told me he took me out of a high chair and he threw me because I took a bowl of spaghetti and poured it over my head. It was a big joke when it happened until the mess had to get cleaned up. And he flung me across the room. That was probably another one of the shots I took to my spine and my head because my spine is screwed up. God rest her soul, my mother was the type of woman. She had 5 children. But when the children got to a certain age and they weren't small anymore, well, they're just like one of the animals we had, I mean, you know.
On the night of November the 13th, 1974, using a .35 caliber Marlin rifle, the 24-year-old Ronald DeFeo Jr. shot the other 6 members of his family as they slept in their beds.
I went downstairs. His door was like 3/4 closed. I went in there, I said, "Hey, fat man, get up." And he started to get up. I'll never forget that. I got scared. So then when I seen his body getting ready to make the move, I just pulled the trigger. After I pulled the trigger, I hit the lever, shot him again. My mother yelled, "Oh my God, run!" Now my mother went with a hand. Towards the side of a bed. My mother had a .38 revolver. It was a tragedy. I lost my whole family. Because I did a stupid thing. I thought, I gotta go scare somebody, and look what happened.
Going from room to room, he first shot his parents, then his 2 brothers, then his 2 sisters. The murders took around 15 minutes from start to finish. Ronald DeFeo Jr. then took a shower and changed his clothes before heading out and raising the alarm that his family had been killed.
I forgot what night it was, but very, very cold night. It's freezing. And at first when they called us up, he says, "We have 4 dead bodies here." And I thought he was joking around because I told him nothing happens in Sleepy Hollow. We call Amityville Sleepy Hollow. And I hung up on him. And then what happened is he calls up again. He says, I'm not kidding. He says, now we found 6. When I heard the Amityville Police Department calling, asking for assistance, I said, oh, this is it. You know? So that's when we ran out. It was an unbelievable sight. So, we went upstairs. On the first floor, we saw Mr. and Mrs. DeFeo. There were no rifle casings, no automatic. Evidently, he must have picked up the shells.
One of the strangest things about the case is how all 6 murdered family members were found laying face down in their beds. The gun used did not have a silencer fitted and would have made an almighty noise with every shot. However, not a single person is thought to have woken up or tried to escape. There was no sign of struggle. Even the neighbours only reported hearing a dog bark a little.
No sign of any struggle, with the exception of the young boy with the broken leg, Mark. The only thing we saw is he had the sheet and he was grabbing the sheet and he was pulling it down. That was the only indication that they didn't die that quickly,
Upon being questioned by the police, DeFeo told them multiple fake stories in a panicked state. When the police pointed out the inconsistencies in what he was saying, he confessed, stating, once I started, I just couldn't stop. It went so fast. During the court case that shortly followed, Ronald DeFeo Jr. claimed to have heard voices in the house telling him to murder his family. Voices that he said seemed to take control of his actions. Could it have been that DeFeo was possessed by an evil, unseen force? Whether the story is true or false, he was still convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to 6 life sentences. The house remained empty for over 12 months after the murders, but was eventually purchased by the Lutz family for only $88,000. The house was sold as it was left, so all the furniture still remained in the house from the night of the murders. The family only stayed in the house for 28 days after moving in, before leaving abruptly, terrified at what they claimed was extreme paranormal activity. George Lutz claimed that since moving into the house he would be woken up at 3:15 a.m. every morning, hearing the front door slamming shut loudly. Each time he went to check the door, he found it was still locked and secure. 3:15 happened to be the exact time of the DeFeo family killings. George also said that one evening his wife Kathy's face seemed to change right before his very eyes into that of a 90-year-old woman, before changing back into the woman he knew. Together, George and Kathy say they'd both witnessed what looked like the face of a demon in a house with its head half blown off. This triggered Kathy to have reoccurring dreams about the murders that took place. But Kathy's terror didn't end there. She believed she was constantly under attack in the house by an unknown entity that she felt embraced her from time to time, but it also made welts appear upon her chest. One night she awoke levitating above her bed. Other strange, scary occurrences happened around the house, such as swarms of flies, even in the freezing cold. Green slime would appear to bleed from the walls, and a crucifix that was on the wall would spin until it was facing upside down. The final straw for the family was when they discovered that their daughter, Missy, had acquired an imaginary friend, an entity that she described as a red-eyed human with a pig's head, called Jody. She explained how Jody had lived in the house before them. The Lutz family called in the help of a priest to bless the house. The priest claimed that upon throwing his first splash of holy water inside the house, he heard a loud masculine voice demanding he'd get out. The priest quickly developed a high fever and blisters on his palms, similar to a stigmata, the mark of crucifixion. Could this activity be caused by the dead members of the DeFeo family that remain at unrest? Or perhaps something darker lies in the very foundations of the house that caused Ronald DeFeo Jr. to pick up the rifle that fateful November night?